The Subtweet, written by Vivek Shraya, narrated by Nisha Ahuja. For Whitney Houston. Big Capital uses racism, casteism, and sexism and gender bigotry in intricate and extremely imaginative ways to reinforce itself, protect itself, to undermine democracy, and to splinter resistance. Arundhati Roy. Neela. Neela Devaki was an original. She was reminded of this fact shortly after she stepped out of her cab and into the Fairmont Hotel, the main site for the North by Northeast Festival. Zipping through the masses of musicians, fans, and industry reps, she felt sorry for the chandeliers, which loomed above like golden flying saucers, forced to light up the dull networking that buzzed beneath them. But a conversation between two art students, draped in curated thriftwear featuring strategically placed rips and holes, brought Neela to a reluctant halt. I was totally working on something like this for my final project. I guess originality really is dead. One of the women sighed, taking photos of herself, duck-faced with a pop-up art installation. Neela skimmed the artist statement. The frosted toothpick statues of penises were a comment on the current global epidemic of white demasculinization. Why not just hang a red and white flag that said, "Make art great again"? Brevity was the true endangered species. You should still do it. All the good ideas are taken anyways. Isn't that kind of freeing? Replied the other. Neela snorted. She would never offer that sort of comfort to a stunted peer. No wonder she was bored with most of the art she encountered. She considered sharing with these young women that she always knew she was on the verge of invention at the precise moment when originality felt impossible. That instead of surrendering to despair, she would needle in and out and through her brain until an idea surfaced, naked, stripped of predictability and familiarity. That this process often required her to sing a phrase over and over for hours until the syllables carved their own unique melody out of hollow air. She was certain that the reiteration planted the words in her vocal cords so that when she sang them, they carried the imprint of her body. By embedding herself into her song, she muted any risk of passing off mimicry as art. Why wasn't fully committing to creation more desirable than observing what everyone else was doing and doing the same? But defending the sanctity of originality to strangers at an art exhibit would make her seem like an egomaniac, and no one listens to a cocksure woman. Instead, she resumed her course, shunning the other art displays jammed in between information tables towards the elevators in the back. Once inside the ornate elevator, she furiously pushed the kissing triangles button to avoid being invaded by a friendly small talker. When she arrived at the room for the panel, she glared at the race and music human-sized banner. Only someone who thought they didn't have a race could have come up with that title. Unable to differentiate between panel discussions and group therapy sessions, she had almost declined this invitation until she beheld the glimmering word honorarium. She wasn't in a financial position to refuse this rare offer of compensation. A volunteer modeling last season's lilac gray hair blocked the entrance, wagging the festival brochure at Neela. "I'm sorry, but this one is full. Would you like to see the list of the other events scheduled for this afternoon?" Neela turned away and stared at the escalator ascending into the sunlight on the main floor. Before she could rush towards it, another volunteer tapped her on the shoulder. "Nyla, we're so glad to have you join us today." "It's Neela. Good to be here." She lied and turned to face a man who looked like an overgrown boy or a male comedian with white-tipped, near-erupting microvolcanoes under his mustache stubble. "Right, of course, Neela, like Sheila," he said, playfully slapping his head. "My name is Mikey, by the way." "Mickey?" she responded. But he didn't hear her as he placed his palm on her back and guided her into the room. She was rarely nervous before an event, and was puzzled by her uncharacteristic perspiration. She worried Mikey could feel her sweat through her ruby blouse until she realized that the wetness was coming from his hand. She shrugged casually, but his fingers clung to her, even when she stumbled over the sneakers of the men in graphic tees and chinos who had filled the standing room area in the back of the hotel ballroom. When they reached the stage, Mikey quickly introduced her to the 4 panelists, 3 men and 1 woman, all of whom appeared to be in their 20s. They each greeted her with variations of, "So honored to meet you."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?